This is CRM Audio, the Microsoft Business Applications podcast with Business Applications MVPs Joel Lindstrom, George Dubinsky, and Sean the CRM Hobbit Tabor. This episode is brought to you by Maplytics by Inogic. Maplytics by Inogic is a market-leading certified for Microsoft Dynamics 365 geoanalytical mapping app. Maplytics empowers users with powerful map visualizations and routing capabilities within Dynamics CRM to drive better sales, improve business processes, and engage the right customers at the right time. Inogic is a leading Microsoft Gold Dynamics CRM ISV delivering best-in-class Dynamics 365 solutions, as well as cost-effective and high-quality programming services. We thank Maplytics by Inogic for sponsoring CRM Audio, the Microsoft Business Applications podcast. It should be mentioned that up front that we are no longer Business Solutions MVPs. We're now Business Applications MVPs. Now,
so
you might think that
we are now BA.
You might still think we're BS MVPs, but no, we're Business Application MVPs. So
exactly.
I don't know what that means, but the new title is cool.
Oh, I'm just looking forward to all the jokes about British Airways.
we have no solutions. That's the answer. We have application.
Nice.
It's all about apps.
So the big news that I think we need to hit up front is the news about how the release cadence is changing.
Mm-hmm.
Sean and George, how is that changing?
Well, it's kind of making official what's been happening, for the past, I suppose, year, 12 months. It's kind of been happening, but now it's official, and they kind of, Microsoft tightened the loose bolts and removing the loose ends. So my understanding is that whilst, for example, now I have customers on 8.2 in the cloud, and I've got customers on 9 in the cloud, and for 8.2 they're still on CDU, so customer-driven updates, that will go away. So as nice as it was to have kind of pseudo power to drive your update when you feel like it, now it's going to be a continuous improvements with the half-yearly major releases. Did I get that right?
Yeah, and I think conceptually it's a great idea. I'm interested to know how well they kind of I don't want to say beta tested, but talk to larger enterprise customers to see how well they would react to this.
So there's basically no more customer-driven updates. There's no more the spring updates coming. You have to, and then scheduling it when it comes out. And the other thing, as I understand it, is they are going to give you access to new functionality in your sandbox environments well in advance of the production update. But that means that people who have been slow to test new updates or are on an 18-month update cycle are going to have to be a little bit more on their toes. However, they're talking about new functionality. Major new functionality will be turned off by default, so that it's more platform updates, and you'll still be able to choose when you roll out the functionality.
Yeah, so to combat the fear of losing these customer-driven updates and kind of still retain these driver seats for the customer, there are a couple things being done. One is what you mentioned, is that major features will have a switch, right, on and off. Basically what we had, for example, for legacy forms. You can switch them off and on, and if it breaks, you put them back on, and you're good to go, right? So the other one is that there will be kind of a rolling preview program. So you'll be able to provision sandboxes with kind of pre-release and test your functionality in sandboxes prior to release. I'm not sure what's the time frame, for example, for let's say October release. What's the time frame? 3 months in advance? I don't remember. Did you see any specific figures?
No, I didn't, but I know we'll see the release preview guide uh, later this summer, North American summer, and so they're starting to uh, put out knowledge base articles with these weekly updates as well, which is nice. That's something that for a while they were releasing updates every week, and nobody knew what was fixed by them.
Yeah, and the way they approach roadmap has changed because remember we had roadmap site that's been taken down. Presumably
Mm-hmm.
it will come back in a different shape and form. Instead of that, we now have we will have some release notes.
Right. I like
well in
the
advance.
I like the idea of everybody being on the same platform. Any old timer remembers updates that had to be pulled or went badly, but I think the goal of getting to more of a stable, consistent release where everybody's on the same version. I mean, that'll change CRM consulting in a big way, because the first question you got to get into, what version are you on, and then you got to
Right.
think back. Okay, did that have properties for product catalog or not?
Right.
So, but it raises a big question about on premises. I mean, because I've got customers still on 2011. There's probably one or two out there still on version 4. There's people who are on way behind, and that's not healthy for the platform. It creates bad vibes to the platform, because then Salesforce comes in and what they have looks all fancy and exciting. Even though what's the current version of Dynamics is equally or more so fancy and exciting.
Yeah, on premises, I assume we'll hear something more in the next, I would say, few weeks. What the plans are. I mean, there will be updates to on premises in autumn, northern hemisphere autumn, that is. So I don't know to what extent it's gonna catch up with the
Well,
functionality, because some of the things are just don't map well.
well, don't you think they're going to have to start updating on-premise more frequently than they have been? Because otherwise, you're going to have such a huge delta between online and on-prem if you're only updating on-prem essentially once a year for a big update.
Well, hopefully twice a year, but
Yeah, hopefully.
hopefully
That's my
only
point.
twice.
They're going to have to update it more often than not, unless they're going to just say there's going to be a base set of functionality for on-prem, and then everything else is going to be edge. You got to go to the cloud. It's going to be connected in some way, shape, or form, and then
Yeah,
that's the way most of the updates are going.
what I'm curious about when I said there are limits to how on-prem is going to be sort of dealt with. Specific limits are in the area of extensibility, because we see the migration of the online platform to business application
Mm-hmm.
platform to Power Apps, and the key to this platform is full extensibility, and for application developers that could be mixing Canvas apps and model-driven apps and throwing in Flow and Logic apps to the mix,
Mm-hmm.
and also for people who write plugins. Now it's dead easy to write plugin that basically calls a function, Azure function. There are some other upcoming changes in the way we extend CRM. We extend the pipeline of CRM. So that's going to be very difficult to replicate as is on premises, unless you start bringing the full Azure stack to on premises. So which is costly, which is possible, and big companies are doing that. And it's very impressive, but it is a costly exercise.
So how does this compare to other Microsoft platforms like Windows and Office? I mean, I get updates to Windows, new features added to Windows, same thing with Office all the time. And I think, though, that that enterprises can still delay or block certain updates for Office 365, at least for a time. Is that how you understand it works?
Well,
So it
depending
was,
depending on how they have depending on how they have their updates set. I mean, if they're using, their the update server, then they can control that. If they're going, they get the updates in through the cloud to their server, then they can deploy their updates. There's different ways you can deploy Office updates than I think there are Dynamics updates.
and
So,
there is always Windows in Tune, basically,
right,
cloud-based
Right.
management of your devices. So
right.
that's kind of different.
Hmm.
What's interesting is that discussion that ensued, how with this cadence, how deprecation of the features is going to be handled. That's the other
That
kind of
that's the
big
that's the concern I
elephant.
have.
That's the second big elephant in the
Yeah,
room.
yeah.
Yeah, because like if you're using that feature and it's automatic, if you're not paying attention, you could be in trouble. All of a sudden, your stuff doesn't work.
Well, luckily we did get some words of encouragement. Hopefully that they will turn into official statement from Microsoft in the upcoming weeks, probably at the summit, um, business application summit. That is,
Hmm.
and the idea, what people don't realize that, and myself included, like I didn't realize how closely, how much data Microsoft collects about usage of different parts of the, Dynamics 365 or CRM. We see it as an app, as a single, application, server, whatever. But there are different components, and Microsoft is collecting the usage statistics, particularly for online, right? All online customers. So Microsoft is collecting who's using SOAP, how often, how much, who's using web client, not who as in specific people, so it's anonymous, but
Numbers, right.
numbers, right? So, and the idea is that um, as long as enough is kind of a stretchable word. Enough people are using specific feature, this feature is not going to be deprecated. What constitutes enough? That's kind of open for interpretation, but the idea is that if feature is used, is not going to be just pulled away like a rug under your feet. And the good example of that is undeprecation of the Outlook client.
Right.
Right. So,
Right.
so it's been a big noise. Lots of customers use it, and
Hmm.
they had to put it back. So the same would apply to SOAP. If let's say 20% of the customers use SOAP in their deployments, they're not just going to switch it off. It's
Right.
not going to happen.
Well, but how will they handle given the new cadence and the ability to preview the upcoming release in a sandbox is something that they've talked about.
Yeah.
Um, with that, I'm curious to see if they're assuming that by providing that, it's putting the onus onto the customer to validate before their change, which makes sense, but not every company has the ability to make that investment in resources to do that in a thorough manner, right? Some people have a partner like ourselves that can help with that. I think we're going to have to be, as a partner community, we're going to have to be a little more cognizant of these changes and do better communication to our clients on potential changes and what they should be testing to make sure that they're doing that well. But for those customers who have their own IT group and do that internally, I remember back in the day when we would have to do testing on on release updates, and it was a bear because you had to do not only testing of the new functionality, but you had to go back and make sure everything else worked the
Yeah.
same way, your code works the same way, etc.
That's understood, but the same way as we're gonna have switches for the new features, right?
Hmm.
So, big kind of switch. I want new feature. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't, switch it off, and you're good, right? So you continue as you were. I would think that for if feature is in use, like if tomorrow you remove announcements, yeah, okay, there's gonna be probably 3 customers around the world who kind of flip out, but the rest is not going to even notice, right?
Mm-hmm.
There will be no announcement about announcements. You can remove it without announcement. How many times can I put it in one sentence? Anyway, so, but if you like pull out dialogues, then a lot of people are going to freak out. So instead of that, what I expect is that Microsoft is going to introduce a switch saying, hey, look, if you really want to try it out, flick the switch and it will disable, dialogue functionality completely without you being unaware.
So you think it's going to be like the preview capability where you go into the tab and you enable or disable new features? You think it'll be like that?
And the same, similar to that, the deprecation will happen. Like I should be able, for example, to switch off SOAP on my instance and see what happened, right? And run on it. And if something breaks, I can just put it back and identify the bits and pieces. The difference between new features and old features is going to be that whilst the new features have this on and off switch, and whether you want or not, features are there to stay. With the old features, it's going to be on and off switch, and you'll be given enough time saying, hey, well, you've got the switch, you can turn it off, see if it works for you. Don't worry, put it back. If it doesn't, try again, whatever. It's continuous switch, and they're going to give ample time to remove it. So, and we're not talking about ample, we're not talking about 3 days or 3 weeks. We're talking about probably 12, 18 months. And again, reminder, they monitor usage. So if they see people still using it, it's just not going to go away. So we're still kind of waiting. This is a bit of speculation, so we're still waiting for the official position. But that's my interpretation how things are going to unfold.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But I'm thinking it's going to probably be a shorter time frame for them to check. It'd be great if they gave them 12 to 18 months, but I don't think they're going to give them that long. I would probably see maybe 3 to 6 at most.
Well, no, I mean you look at the features that have been deprecated recently. What's been turned off? Only server-side SharePoint and only client-side SharePoint and client-side sync. Other things like relationships, announcements, all those are still there 12 to 18 months after the deprecation.
What about
right? No, I'm saying that's now. That's now. I'm saying in the go forward, I don't think it's going to be that length of time. I think you won't hear as many deprecations because when it comes, it's going. That's my thought.
Well, I think that, but the big one coming up is going to be the web client, the web client to unified interface, and they've indicated that they're going to give people a good long time before they do that. And that's the other thing I was thinking of is if you are concerned about this and you're concerned that you don't want to find yourself 6 months from now, getting some update that turns off some feature, the best thing you can do is build on the unified interface.
Correct.
Because that already doesn't have the deprecated stuff.
I'm all for it. I do have a few clients running on unified interface 100%. It just doesn't have the parity for all the features.
Not yet.
So, as long as as soon as parity is there, I'm just going to leave web client behind and start moving clients.
And that should, I mean, the big things like advanced find and merge and all that, those buttons are coming later this month.
You know what? I wouldn't miss if users don't have access to advanced find. It's just a big gun, and people keep shooting their toes.
Yeah,
off.
that's a good point because I did some research on a project I'm on, and I really looked into with the business community to say who really, really needs advanced find, and I found it was a very small handful. Initially, when you're in the sales cycle, it's a cool feature. It's a power query is how they perceive it, but when you really get down to it, if your views and your quick find is tuned correctly, if your relevance and categorized search is tuned correctly, I agree. Everybody doesn't need advanced find. It's a subset of people.
You can
look
quick
advanced
find save to a personal view and then
right.
Filter. That makes a lot of sense.
Advanced find. It's basically every time users pull advanced find, it's another indication that you haven't done your job right. Users don't have to have the need to go to advanced find. Basically,
I think
there will be some exceptions of power users and things like that.
Right.
In general,
but you could identify those.
Yeah, 99%. It's a shortcomings of the design. It means you haven't designed things right. And I admit, like one of the projects I migrated recently, I had to write code to migrate personal views with all the assignments they had. Oh, sorry, a sharing that's been going on. Right, I migrated something like 270 views, and they've been shared across like 900 times, and I take the full responsibility. Basically, I let these customers slip away into the habit of, oh, I can create another view, save it, share with 5 people. Here we go. That's for this week. And then they forget about it, and it just hangs around, and they say, are you using this? Yeah, maybe. Yes, no, maybe. No, let's migrate it anyway.
Right.
So, and I take full responsibility, saying I shouldn't have let it happen. Every time they use the view that needs to be shared, review it, and create a system view. And specifically now, when you can create apps, because they also use this view sharing as mechanism of creating views for specific groups of people, for the teams, and now you have ability to do it within the apps, so you can pull specific views in. So one less excuse. Design apps.
I've got one major exception to that rule, and that's marketing. People building marketing lists, people doing campaigns need advanced find, and sure, if they've got D365 for marketing, they use segments, which are basically a new version of advanced find, if you will, because you're building a filter. But people use click dimensions. That's how you build marketing lists. So that's the one.
I have another idea, and I think it's gonna take off. I put a dips on the app. There is a reading mode, I think, on Kindle. You use Kindle, Joel, right? So on Kindle there is a scrolling reading mode. Auto scroll, right? So basically you have a customer list that is being scrolled, and when you see the customer that you need to market to, you kind of whack-a-mole, bang, and it keeps scrolling and just keep banging it until you're done through the list.
Right, because I mean, if you want to build your marketing list of just people in this state or city, you can do that with a filter, but you can't do it if you want to say, I want to market to everybody who has this product but not this product. I would market to everybody whose last interaction with us was 6 months ago or whatever.
But think about it. If we could have, let's say when they enable advanced find in unified interface, if we have the ability to turn on or turn off that icon, I think personally that's a great customization capability, because you're going to avoid the unnecessary training for those people who will never use advanced find. Because advanced find training it's not an easy thing to do if you don't have folks in the implementation who get
it's
logic.
Probably like 2 out of 100 people that need
right.
it.
Right.
So what? Yeah,
go ahead, George.
With advanced find, I'm actually kind of sitting on both sides of the fence in terms of I want to remove it for 90% of the users, right? But for 10% of the users, I want to have capabilities of parameterizing the find. Comparing the fields. If field A not equal field B, then give me those customers, right? So you can't do that at the moment. You can only compare to fixed values. You can't even use things like time-related things, and you can't parameterize views. The same like you can do with reports. So I want the report filter. You know how you build a report filter? I want these capabilities in advanced find.
So here's my prediction. and I don't know this to be, this is based on just speculation, but CDS, the query builder is Power Query with the New World. So the way Microsoft has been going with using existing pieces they already have rather than building something special, why wouldn't they just get rid of Advanced Find and put a Power Query button there?
And say goodbye to Fetch XML? How dare you?
Well, that could convert to a Fetch XML query or a view, but yeah, why not?
Too close to the metal? I really don't know. I don't have a good answer for you, but the statement stays. So I really would like not to see Advanced Find for most of the users, but for those where it makes sense, we would like to see some enhancements and improvements being done.
Yeah, I think
if you have people who know who like Advanced Find but aren't really using it, but they think they got to have it, show them the filters. So, too many people are not using the filters.
Mm-hmm.
And when you show people and say this is just like Excel, then they get it and they love it.
Oh yeah, especially grid capabilities like grouping, for example. And,
right.
Things
right.
like that. Yeah.
I think basically what I think we all agree on is we just need a way to be able to control who has Advanced Find, which we kind of can't now unless you do some crazy stuff. But I think hopefully we'll be able to do that in the future.
I'm sure we got a tip. We had a tip of the day about some obscure security permission you removed that would make the Advanced Find button go away. I don't know. I think we did.
I'm sure we do.
Well, George? Do you want to talk about the recent tip of the day you just posted? Because that was a very good one.
Which one?
The one about the app icon.
Oh yes.
That was a very good one.
Mr.
Mordu.
Mr. Mordu basically complained that when you build an app, your icon still looks like a puzzle piece, and that is puzzling, at least. So I started to dig because marketing does display. Marketing is an app, and it does display proper icon. Sales, Sales Hub and Customer Service Hub, they all display proper icons. So I started looking and just basically pulled HTML and looked inside, and it does look like a reference to the vector resource. So what's been missing is like how to define it in a sitemap. So it turns out neither XRM Toolbox sitemap editor nor sitemap editor inside the app basically allow you to define this vector resource. Turns out there is a property defined buried down in schema, so you have to download like XSD file and look inside, and there's a vector icon attribute on this element, on the area map element, and you just add it there by hand like a good old times, and voila, it appears. The one thing I did learn when I was playing with it, that our quick tip how to take image and quickly convert it to SVG file is a bad tip. It's really bad tip, because what happens is it just embeds it. SVG file has capability. SVG is a text file. You can open it with Notepad and see what's inside. It's just XML, right? So it contains like traces. So it contains the path where you draw with a pen, and you can draw a path, so a vector graphics. But if it has a bitmap, you can embed a bitmap and just a bunch of binary data in there. Now, what happens is that it does embed bitmap and it's going to display it, but it's not going to scale. The advantage of SVG is that it scales. It scales between devices, scales between form factors. It really looks nice. So I started looking, and I found this great program, Inkscape, free, but it's got awesome capabilities of tracing bitmaps and converting bitmaps into path. It works great. It's the same way. Remember good old days when we had we have like 64 by 64 icon or 256 by 256, and then we have the 16 by 16 pixels icons. And I asked graphic designers, I said, every time I scale the icon, it just doesn't look nice on 16 by 16. And they all said independently, they all said, look, nobody in their mind professionally would scale the icon down. You draw icon from scratch in 16 by 16 because the meaning, the way the eye interprets it changes. And I learned it hard way. I took our tipster logo and I just traced it and plonk it in, and it looked awful. It looked like you can't see it, you can't recognize it. It is a trace, it scales, but it looks good only if you blow it up to the screen. So, and then I started kind of playing with the path, removing unnecessary elements, simplifying it, and turns out, yeah, it took shape. So I'm saying if you want your icons to look professionally, well, hire a professional to do your SVG files and do your vector graphics. But to start quickly, yeah, this Inkscape does awesome job. So quickly put it together.
You said that was Inkscape?
Inkscape. It's I-N-K, scape, S-C-A-P-E.
Okay.
Inkscape.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. I know it started as more do complaining, but that's a big deal for model-driven apps, especially if you're trying to, as a ISV. It's a small thing, but it's a big thing, right? So that was a good
Look,
catch.
how application looks defines to a
Right.
there's only one chance to make a first impression.
Right, especially if you're selling it. You're selling the subscription to this model-driven app,
Yeah.
and you have this puzzle
speaking
piece. Like, what the
Speaking
hell?
of which, starting July, there's been a lot of talk about it, but then Microsoft went silent, and suddenly it's official. We do have ISV competency for partners.
Ooh. And what does that entail?
On silver level, surprisingly not a lot. So to be partner, you can engage at community level, you can subscribe to map, so it all stays the same. But if you want to have silver competency, all you need to have is an app in App Store. And pay money, obviously, fill your profile, the usual. So it's like 1,600 per year US, 2,200 Australian dollars. So it's money. It's reasonable money for individual. For company, probably not so much. If you're serious about it, it's well worth it. You get the benefits. You get something like 6,000 per year in Azure credits alone. So there's lots of benefits, but the point is there's a new ISV competency. It's very easy to attain at silver level. At gold level, it's performance driven, so you need to drive like Azure consumption or sales of Dynamics, things like that. So it's much harder to get, but there are no, unlike other competencies, there are no exam requirements, there are no staff requirements. So I encourage people who are looking into putting an app on AppSource. That opens the door now for you to become a fully fledged Microsoft partner with the silver competency. And that brings lots and lots of benefits, right? So that's one. And then there's been some restriction around partner programs. So we now have business applications, 3 competency in business applications. Without going into details, basically they're around ERP, customer engagement apps, so we're talking about sales, customer service, field service, and so on. And then there are business apps. So you build business apps and kind of build solutions around them. So build verticals and things like that. So there are 3 distinct competencies around that. But those are a bit more kind of resource intensive. You have to pass exams, you have to have staff who pass the exams. So with you need to drive sales, you've got some performance KPIs and things like that. So not much changed. But yeah, if you just have an app that is publishable to AppSource, go for it and you're in. So and you get bazillions of dollars in Azure credits, other benefits, internal use rights, well worth those, $1,600 that you would pay for membership. Plus, you get millions of leads through the app source. Prepare to kind of work with those leads that are going to be generated.
Cool. That's really great.
Cool. Hey, I imagine that's going to be very attractive to people who are getting into the Power Apps world.
And hot off the presses, off Twitter 3 hours ago, Tanguy has updated sitemap editor to handle the vector icon attribute.
He did promise.
Yes, he did.
Oh, word of warning for those of you who are going to use XRM Toolbox sitemap editor to edit that attribute, the vector icon attribute. Don't edit sitemap after that inside Dynamics sitemap editor, because that editor will strip it away.
That was the tip of the day we had. It removes all the ones you hide, I believe. But speaking of disappearing stuff in the sitemap, I've noticed the mystery of disappearing settings icons in the sitemap. And I hadn't quite figured it out, but then I had a colleague who emailed me about one of them. I've noticed the process link going away in several fairly new environments. I've noticed app designer going away, and our colleague noticed organization insights just disappeared. And I've got my own Dynamics environment, as we all do as MVPs. And I've loaded that thing up with field service and voice of the customer, and so my theory is one of these solutions has a sitemap in it that doesn't have that link in it or something, and it removes it. But have you noticed that or seen things just disappear from settings?
Processes and apps are the major culprits that happen almost every implementation at least once. And you got to put them back manually. Yeah. And it's not always in every environment. So if you have multiple environments, dev, test, QA, prod, it might go away in test, but not in dev. So you have to either move a solution or you have to go in and update the sitemap to put it back. Yeah.
So when you put it back, how did you find what the link should point to for processes or app designer?
I go to another app and get the information from there and then replicate it.
Okay.
Typically manually is how I've done it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
but it's a pain in the butt. I agree.
Right. So George, are you going to be at Business Application Summit?
No, I'm taking well-deserved break from travel. So after our European...
No, I thought you were going to be there. Bummer.
I'm going to be there in spirit.
All right, good man. Good man.
I wish it just becomes costly exercise to travel so much. It's long flights, and it takes away, realistically, it would take away more than a week of time. So it's just cost to business. Sometimes, I'm going to lose all the customers, It's traveling.
It's the end of winter, so you need to enjoy that cold Australian winter weather while you have it.
I am enjoying cold Australian winter. The temperature barely over 60 in Newspeak. Yeah.
Nice. It's like Tampa.
Pretty much.
I wish Tampa was 60 degrees. It's like 102. Good
I'm
Lord.
talking about in wintertime.
Oh, in wintertime, yes, 60 degrees. That's when we freak out and put on parkas. Yes.
So I'm signing up for all the sessions about roadmap. That's the thing I'm most excited about, is hearing from the team, where we're going and what's all the exciting stuff coming with Power Apps and Dynamics and Power BI and Flow and all that stuff.
But I'm going to be at Ignite.
Okay.
Well, there you go. Vegas, baby.
No,
that's Inspire.
That's Inspire. That's Partners.
Oh, that's right. I think all three of us will be at Ignite, right?
That's in your...
Yes, that's in Orlando.
Orlando, yeah.
If you're nice, George, I'll take you to Disney World.
My hotel is actually at Universal Studios.
Really?
Yeah.
My hotel has name.
It's the Cabana.
I can't remember anyway. But yeah, I'm fingers crossed that any or all of us approved as speakers. Because
Yeah, as
recently
we
they
speak
opened
today's the day we find out, isn't it?
tomorrow.
Should be. Well,
Today or tomorrow?
Today or tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
we
good
should
luck to
find
us
out
all.
here.
Well,
Yes,
whether we get
yes.
officially selected as Ignite podcasters, we will be podcasting from there. I can predict.
Yes, we will.
Yeah, I suppose we will be podcasting regardless. It's just going to be doing it officially.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like an underground podcast.
Right.
You know,
And from
in the toilet cubicle.
And from Business Application Summit, we're going to be podcasting as well, across the whole of the network. We're going to have a lot of podcasts going that week.
I hope to join you, and we do have. We even had a fight over the guest.
But we had an amicable solution, so we're good.
Kind of amicable solution. But the interesting thing that, on related note, one of the updates that just came out is writing your domain, right? So
yes.
You want to talk about that? So
the update for Universal Resource Scheduling.
Yeah, it's kind of the most underappreciated.
It is, and it's going to become more and more part of the entire platform as opposed to a field and project service kind of feature function.
Well, it is after all, it's a separate solution. It's just bundled with either field service or project service.
Yeah, right now to install it,
carrier.
Yeah, to install it, you have to have at least one person licensed with field or project service to get it installed. Once it's installed, then you can enable any number of entities to schedule against. Right?
What's the most bizarre entity you had to schedule?
Well, so what I've done so far, I've done custom entities where we are scheduling. It's more equipment, but they're not using products for the equipment. But what I've heard of scheduling for clergy. That one I thought was, I mean, it makes sense. But I never would have thought of it. So, if you need a baptism, if you need to do a wedding, if you need, I guess, an exorcism, you can use it to schedule a member of the clergy.
Field service. Exorcism is a field service, right? So.
Kind of, but not really, because you're not doing a work order. You're just getting them out there. It just gives you the power to schedule it and get it on a schedule board.
Interesting that you mentioned, Joel. You're into marketing, right? So you kind of to a degree. I think I did tell this story before, but I just repeat it because it seems to be relevant. I was working the booth a few years back when Dynamics Marketing, the old one, the marketing pilot, just came out, and I was kind of talking about it, and got approached by one of the partners and said, so can it send like a volume email? So I said, yeah, it can handle like 5 million a month. He said, yeah, we need a bit more scalability. I said, so what you're looking at is kind of try me. He said, yeah, about 6 million a day.
Wow.
And I'm kind of, what?
That's a lot.
Newsletter. Open rate over 80%, something like this. I said, you gotta be kidding me. You sitting on a gold mine. He said, yeah, not quite a gold mine. It is to an extent. And of course they were sending daily prayers. And people were adamant, like if they don't receive these daily prayers, they were really, really upset.
Yeah.
And complained. So imagine having 6 million emails to send every day with the open rate of 80%, and people complain if they don't receive it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of wow.
I was looking at it for scheduling leads, and it was for a mortgage company. And the idea was they wanted a lead comes in, they wanted it, it's time sensitive, and so they wanted to schedule to make sure somebody got on it. I don't know if that's the ultimate solution we'll go with, but I could see the potential there for.
Wouldn't you just do a task?
Well, but think of this. Think of it this way. You have to look at beyond just the actual scheduling of the service, right? You have to also consider going a little deeper with the characteristics, the abilities of the people you're scheduling it against. So, for example, in a financial services situation, you have a client that just had a new baby. So that opens up estate planning capabilities, retirement capabilities, insurance changes. So now you can schedule. Against those proficiencies.
Let me you in on a secret. New baby is never an opportunity for retirement.
It's
just the opposite. It's just the opposite.
Retirement planning, I should say. Thank you for the clarification.
Away just by at least 20 years.
This is true. But you see,
I think we should. Yeah. Look, I think we should reserve this discussion for our next episodes. In both at your service and this podcast, because we'll have someone who knows a bit more than all of us together about.
Absolutely. Yeah. So during the Business Application Summit, we'll be recording. We'll be recording a CRM audio episode, an At Your Service episode, a Power Apps podcast. We're going to be all over the place, so it's going to be exciting.
That's right. And, now that we have our Power Apps podcast, we're now the leading podcast in the iTunes store for both Power Apps and Microsoft Flow.
Woohoo! And if you haven't listened to the last Power Apps podcast, it was a very fun one. So I encourage you to do so. And George, we need to get you on. We need to get you on the Power Apps podcast at some point.
Aren't we all Power Apps?
Yeah, I guess we're all CDS apps. Maybe. I don't know.
We're all Power Apps. It's just
we are.
I mean, your podcast about Canvas? Is that it?
No, it covers
the
both.
World of Power Apps and Flow.
Yeah, Power Apps, Flow, CDS.
Yeah, we touched on Canvas apps.
Yeah.
Joel, how did you manage to get zero inbox?
He's got to just not read it and delete it. He has to.
Okay, every time you look at an email, you have three choices to make about that email. You can reply, you can delete, or you can file it somewhere. And as long as you do that,
hold on. There is a fourth one. You delegate.
Yeah, or delegate, but get it out of the inbox. That's the answer. Is get out of the inbox, and so.
But aren't you just swiping it under the rug?
No, I am seeing it, and if I need to delegate it to somebody else, I'm doing it. If it's something that needs me to come back to it later, I have a follow-up folder I do. But that way,
your follow-up folder becomes your massive inbox.
But I get away from what it used to happen to me, which is I'd have all these emails in my inbox, and something would fall between them, and I would miss it. I don't miss anything.
True. Sometimes, I do a task of monthly cleanup of the inbox, and I keep going through emails, and more often than not, I come across an email, and it's like, oh shite, I was supposed to reply to that.
Well, here's the thing with that monthly cleanup. If you do it daily, it's much easier. End of the day, take 15 minutes. And make sure, and things aren't directly to me. A lot of those I can just delete or read and delete. If they're sent to me and I need a response, I respond to it. And if there's things I can't do right now, I follow up. I move it to my follow up and give myself a task in my task system. And then when I do that task, I can delete it and get it out. We have a whole podcast about this, George. It's called Podcast.
Welcome to the network, George.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, gentlemen, enjoy your winter, George, and Sean, whatever you're doing. Hope it goes well today.
All night. Yes.
Flying home.
Okay.
This has been CRM Audio, the Dynamics 365 podcast. Send us your feedback at voice@crm.audio. Check out our other shows at crm.audio or subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and any place else podcasts are offered. This podcast is a production of Dynamics Podcast LLC.